Hello and welcome to Winning in Work, the show turning the rat race into a happy place. I'm your host, Nikki Pack, and today we're going to talk to Charlotte Lockhart, founder and CEO of the 4-Day Week. The 4-Day Week is a reduction in the work week while largely maintaining the same productivity, for example, shifting from a standard 40 hours to 32 hours for the same pay and benefits. This reduction has been proven to work well for employees and employers. In today's show, we'll discuss what the 4-day work week looks like and how it has benefited and hindered businesses. We'll also discuss how you can see it working for your own industry. As always, be sure to listen all the way through for all the good bits, and for future episodes, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. Our guest today is Charlotte Lockhart. She is founder and CEO of the 4-Day Week Global. Charlotte promotes internationally the benefits of a productivity-focused and reduced-hour workplace through the 4-Day Week Global Foundation, which funds research into 4-day week practices and the future of work and workplace well-being. She's on the board of the Wellbeing Research Centre at Oxford University and the advisory boards of the US campaign and the Ireland campaign for the 4-Day Week. So thanks, Charlotte, for joining us.
My pleasure to be here.
And firstly, I guess we'll kick off with, what is the 4-Day Week?
Well, that's a very good question, actually, because it's a bit of a misnomer, really. What we really advocate for is reducing worker hours. So that might be a 4-day week, but we are accepting of the fact that closing your office on a whole day is not necessarily practical for all companies. And so we advocate that what we call the 100-80-100 principle. So where you pay your staff 100% of their income, they work 80% of the time, and then they are asked to provide you with 100% of the productivity. So the business isn't losing out. The staff is getting the reduced in time, but they also don't have a reduction in pay.
Okay. So, in an ideal world, that's what we all want, right? To work less hours for 100% of the pay. But how do you work that out? How do you make yourself productive enough to be able to effectively 100% output for less time?
Well, therein lies the rub, isn't it? So, what we advocate in our program is that a business will work with its people to do several things. The first thing is actually to establish what true productivity is in our business, because people confuse productivity with busyness. And we might be busy all day, but we're not necessarily productive all day. And the difference between the two is basically described by this. So you get to the end of a day, you get home, and your partner says to you, "How was your day?" Now, day one, you've got your report done that you needed to have done. You went to important and relevant meetings. They didn't run over. There was agreed outcomes. You've achieved what you felt you needed to achieve for the day. And your partner says, "How was your day?" You say, "I had a wonderful day."
Yeah.
Or you can go to work for the same number of hours and sit in a meeting you're sitting there thinking, why am I here? I've got that report on my desk that I still need to finish. And when you get home at the end of the day with that report still needing to be done after the children have gone to bed, and your partner says, "How was your day?" and you say, "It was rubbish." So it's about having a workplace where leadership and all of the staff and all people are clear about why they're there and what's important to achieve during the day. That means that the company has its productive outcome that it's needed. That what are you employed to do? What are you paid to do to be there? And you're not paid to sit in unnecessary meetings. You're paid to attend important meetings. I'm using meetings as the analogy, but you're there to do the stuff that you were employed to do. And so what we're talking about is a program by where the C-suite decide that they want to reduce worker hours, and then they hand it over to their people to say, right, help us define what productivity is. Help us to give you the workplace that means that we can value that productivity, and let's work out how we reduce hours while we're doing it. And so the two are not, they are interconnected. And then, of course, what happens is that when people have time, they get a lot of that stuff that they might do, like ringing the plumber at work, done in their own time. And they don't need to bring so much of what is disturbing their lives into the workplace. But they're also better in their well-being as well. So when they come, A, you have less sick days, but B, they just come with the energy necessary to get the job done because they have sufficient enough rest or sufficient enough of outside life. I often say to leaders when I'm talking, we need to remember that we borrow our people from their lives.
I like
And
that.
when you have that mindset, you actually recognize the place. Work isn't someone's life as much as we might want it to be. It's not. And as much as they might want it to be, I mean, don't forget there are lots of people out there who just live for their work. But if we want a whole society and we want our people to be whole, we actually have to recognize that we need all of those different things. And so we have Labor Day here in New Zealand, and I believe you have one in the UK as well. And what we're doing with that is we're recognizing and celebrating the 40-hour work week, because we recognize that we should have 8 hours of work, 8 hours of play, and 8 hours of rest. But of course, when we started the 40-hour work week, our society was constructed quite differently. Work was constructed quite differently. And so generally it was just dad that went off to work. And then when he came home from work, he was there for family meals and family time at the end of the day. And weekends were about the family having time to be together, or people being able to have time to engage in sport or their communities. And it wasn't about where is the Wi-Fi, finishing off emails and dealing with emails on my phone. And family holidays weren't about where's Wi-Fi for us to all be connected, and don't disturb mum and dad because I've just got to clear my emails for the day. We were able to properly switch off, and that has changed. And the pandemic has added in another layer of change because we are remaining working from home largely, and we have stopped working from home. We're now sleeping at work. And we know the studies have been done that suggest that work time has increased. It has opened up because my office is on the corner of the kitchen table now. And it's too easy and too tempting to go in. So lots of employers and many people that listen to your podcast, they're all grappling with, how do we help with this conundrum? We know it's not good. And so therefore, by going on a program by where you're truly recognizing what productivity is and truly recognizing the hours that are necessary to do that, then you're giving your people the permission, you're putting in place the processes that allow people to connect out and go, right, this is my work for the day or the week or the month, and I'm achieving that. That's what I'm contracted to do, and I don't need to do anything else because my work wants me to be outside of work. And so it's a permission that you need to give yourself, and it's a permission that your employers need to give you as well.
Yeah, I can. That is 100% true. I think that's actually one of the biggest things, is that it needs to be on both sides. It needs to be an employee and an employer agreement for sure. I know so many of us will go back into work on a Monday and go, oh, I really wish that I had an extra day off. I wish I only worked 4 days. So everything you say, completely understand. But what was it that made you go, you know what, I'm actually going to start the 4-day week, global 4-day week foundation? What made you actually think, right, I'm actually going to do something about this?
Well, so when we did the 4-day week in our company here in New Zealand, Perpetual Guardian, it was such a huge rip-roaring success and a big international extravaganza, realistically. Andrew has been interviewed in 96 countries around the world. But what it became clear when we travelled, and we spent part of our year up in the UK, and this is obviously pre-pandemic,
Yeah.
when travel was a thing that we did. But we would have people say, look, you're going to be in London or New York or whatever. Can we catch up with you? I want to pick your brains. I want to have a look at what you're doing. And that's academics and legislators um, and companies and just people and journalists. And it became clear that there was a need for some sort of organisation that could cover all of this, but also bring in some of the other people that are doing interesting work in this space, whether they be academics or other advocates for reduced hour working, whether it be a 4-day week or a 32-hour week. And actually, how do we become a community? Because as a community, we are stronger. And then the pandemic hit, and and it's like, oh, okay. So we decided to just spend the first part of lockdown just listening because, obviously we all had the concern that there would be no work. And we didn't want to be going out with, hey, how about do we just work less? And then everybody's going, actually, I just want to work at all. And we really needed the workplace to get a chance to reframe itself. And what we're seeing, of course, is this whole concept of the Great Resignation, where now people are choosing. They're saying, I want to work for a place that gives me the style of work that I want. And employers are having to react to that and activate that. So the more and more we do that, the more conversations keep coming to us because people go, what if I had a 4-day week? That's going to help me attract and retain great staff. And when people are coming to our employment or in our employment process and they ask, what can the company do for me? I have an answer.
I like that, and the flexibility. I think that's the biggest thing that people need now. Exactly as you say, a pandemic almost was a catalyst for everything, and people are now demanding what they want. People have the confidence, I think, to say, I'm good at my job, and I can do my work in this amount of time, and rather than feel that they have to do what the employer says 5 days a week.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I can do my work from home, or I can do my work from home 2 or 3 days a week, or actually I need to come into the office. I mean, I don't want to not be talking to the people who still feel that they need to engage with office work. So the workplace has to change. And so our program, whether you use it as a specific one for reducing worker hours, and obviously that's what we advocate for, but it's actually a really good system for establishing how you might do a very employee engaged program to rework your workplace. So it works for both.
So is it limited to certain industries, or can pretty much does it have to be office based? How does it work exactly?
No, it doesn't have to be office space. I mean, it's obviously quite easy for people to see how it would work in the office. Just cut back on a bit of the meetings and a little bit less water cooler chat. And you know what? Let's not do yoga at work. Let's do yoga with our friends. But and so people often feel it's a little bit more conflicting around how you make it work outside of that. But actually, it's not as hard as you think. And there are examples of industry, pretty much any industry, there's a company doing it. But what it requires is for management to be a bit agile in their thinking and a fully engaged employee-led program to work out how we reduce work hours in our business, whether that be because we've got shifts or we're a 7-day-a-week operation, or we've got manufacturing, office, and some other aspect, sales, or people out and about. There are various different ways that you might need to look at how you reduce work in your workplace and how you support those different elements of your business to being that. And you do it by asking the people who it matters the most to.
Well, that's it. I mean, it's so many times you do have leadership go into a room, make a load of decisions, and say to their team and the workforce, right, this is what we're going to do going forward. But the idea of actually listening, saying to the employees, right, let's work together on this, and let's, you guys lead. What do you want? It does leave you in a position where, eventually, if the employees say that they're unhappy, you say, well, we went through a process and this is what we came up with. How can we amend it? So it's always going to be a working, a working project. It's never just going to just be a one. It's definitely not going to be a one size fits all model. But it's a lot more collaborative. It's a lot more innovative. It's pretty
Exactly.
special, actually. Yeah.
And we get I get business leaders all of the time come in and they go, oh, so how do you, and it's, how do you measure productivity? What? You're not measuring it now? Oops. So what happens when leaders ask too many questions and need answers to those too many of those questions? They're not actually leaving it open for their people to find answers that are unknown even to them. So usually what happens when you start on a program, so the C-suite decides they want to do it, they hand it over to the staff and they get the staff to design the program and possibly, if you don't have them, design or redesign your productivity measures. And as the staff work through that and they think and they look at their day and they look at their week and they look at what they do, as they actually analyze stuff to try and find how they might do it differently, they learn things about themselves. They learn things about their job role and about their team, the way their team functions, and their teams function within an organization. And so all of that is not known at the beginning. And so you find out so much about your business that everyone's sometimes surprised about. There are some really ordinary things that, just reduce meeting times, that you can predict. But when you give people a chance to truly look at what they're doing, they surprise even themselves. And then great, because what are you doing? Your business is there to be productive. At its heart, a business's job is to be productive and make money. And we want businesses to make money because then you have shareholder return and shareholder investment back into the business and into the economy. We have taxes that get paid by the business and by its people, which means we get roads and schools and hospitals. So our economy requires successful businesses, and our employees require to work in successful businesses and not have to fear for their jobs. But they also want to work in healthy environments. They want to be winning at work, as your podcast is entitled. And so, what is the program we're giving them that sets them up for that? How do we enable them to truly win at work?
Well, that's it. And I think that's one of the big things. Because I worked in professional services for many years before moving into workplace wellbeing. And I remember it was always about being seen in the workplace. You wanted to be seen. You wanted to be at your desk for as many hours as possible. You always wanted to be contactable. You wanted to be able to respond to the emails. And I remember, things exactly as you say, yoga in the office was known as a big thing because it meant that you never left the office. Everything was where you were. And that's all now starting to change, where people are starting to think, actually, I want to leave the office. I want to be able to be at home with my kids at the same time as, if I just need to answer one or two emails, I don't want to be in the office that entire time.
Exactly.
So it's really interesting because, as you say, the employees, coming forward and saying, actually, this is what I want. It's moving forward into the future of work. It's moving work into something that, everybody comes together to build the business. It's the employees are not just working for the employer, they're working with the employer. And that's actually something that I don't think there are a lot of companies that still need to move into that way of thinking.
Look, businesses cannot exist without their employees. It's a partnership. And if you have an us and them culture, you've got a different problem. But if you're wanting to crack through some of that, this will be the best team engagement or team building exercise you ever do. And it's about empowering them. And people often sort of say to me, how do I broach this with my boss? How do we have that conversation? And I think at its heart, you've got to remember that your boss, the CEO, if we're talking that high up, and the CEO reports to the board, their job is to make money for the shareholders. And the board's also got the unfortunate and unattractive requirement to be compliant and regulatory as well. So what you've got to do is you've got to sort of frame it in their language, and you've got to so you go to your employer and you say, we would like to run an employee-led program that examines and improves productivity within our business. And if we can do that successfully and find ways which we can reduce the amount of time that we need to be in the office, then we would like to have a reduced hour workplace. And we would like to work with you to find out what that is. But you've got to come from the productivity. To be fair, there are lots of bosses out there who think well-being should be at the center of what they do. And if you've got one of those bosses, then lead with well-being. Hey, I've got this great well-being program. And they'll have already be considering it anyway. So perhaps just giving them that pathway. Of course, one of the employers' fears is often, oh God, if I want to make a change, how are my staff going to cope with that? So sometimes you just need to feel like there's a partnership between you and your people. If you're a union-led or union representative workplace, then you probably want to, get the union involved as well, so that you're not then running off and doing your program and then having your union behind you missing out on the journey and not necessarily helping with that. And look, I think most unions are on board with this. There are a few that are, we should just work less without reducing pay, and we shouldn't have to be more productive. But if we're in this partnership space, then we're recognizing that. So so just say to your boss, I'm keen to explore how we can increase productivity and have that lead to us having more time off.
Yeah, I like that. Does that mean, I guess the one thing is to say, by moving down to 32 hours, in terms of holiday and things like that, you're actually almost you're almost forcibly taking that holiday bit by bit throughout the year, rather than.
Well, you still get your holidays, of course, because we're actually not taking away your holidays. And so, what you've got to remember is we're not spreading your holidays over the year. You still get those. We are reducing the amount of time that you work during the week, and so the key thing with this, so often what I suggest to employers is don't try and change employee contracts, because that's another layer
Yeah.
of complexity that is really hard to manage. So what we do at Perpetual Guardian, and was the legal advice that we got in New Zealand, and I'm fairly sure it would apply in a lot of other, especially common law jurisdictions, is we actually have our staff opt into what we call the productivity week. And therefore this is an opt-in. But your holiday pay, your sick pay, all of those things remain despite the fact that you are working less hours. And the reason for that is because you are still producing for your employer what you were contracted to do in the first place. Right? You're not breaking
Yeah.
your contract. If you think about it, yes, your contract might say you need to be here at these hours and all that sort of stuff. That's the amount of time you're being paid for. But in reality, your job exists because there's something that needs to be done. And so you're saying, I'm going to do it in less time. And that's what I want. So you're breaking the nexus between being paid for time and being paid for the job that you do. And that sometimes in some employment environments where people are paid or bill on time, sometimes requires a little bit of imagination on the part of the C-suite around how they do that. The classic is lawyers, right? Lawyers bill in 6-minute blocks and all that. Well, that's what they say they do, right? They go, but actually lawyers don't bill in 6-minute blocks. What lawyers do is measure their people in 6-minute blocks. And at the end of the month, or a piece of work, they look at all of those blocks, they add them all up, they see what the number is, and then they invoice the client what they think the client will pay. And it's hardly ever, you ask law firms around the world, it's hardly ever the sum total of the 6-minute blocks. And then the other thing that I challenge people like that is I go, well, look, is my 6-minute block that you did at 9 o'clock in the morning the same in value to me in terms of quality of the work as a 6-minute block that you might have done at 9 o'clock at night? And so actually what we're looking for, and there isn't a person on this face of this earth that wants to be invoiced based on time. If I've got a legal problem or a solution that I'm looking for, I want you to give me the solution, invoice me for that. Do a piece of work for me that I can value, and I will pay you the value of that piece of work. And so it's how we do that. And the other thing that is really important is that it's about the quality of the relationship with your clients. So there are 3 things that you need to take into consideration when you're looking at this. What does it do for the business? So it has to keep the productivity high. It has to keep the business imperatives still need to be taken into consideration. What are our clients' needs? And whether they're external clients or internal key stakeholders or whatever, the person that is impacted by your job, and then what do the people need? And so those 3 things are equally as important, and no one of them is more important than the other. And so therefore you've got to be looking at how is this going to impact on our clients, and you need to take them on a journey as well and explain to them this is why we're doing it. We recognize that our people work really hard when they're with us. We want the quality of the work to be the best it can be when they're with us, and then we want to give them back their lives. And most clients will agree that that's a good thing. What and clients are no different from children. Well, how is that going to impact on me? Well, just make sure you're clear with your communications with them, and make sure you give them an opportunity for feedback as well. Hey, tell me how our reduced hour work thing is impacting on you. They might need to adjust how they engage with your business. They might have to decide that they can't be as needy as they might be otherwise, or they might need a different way of communicating with you.
Well, I guess that's it, isn't it? Because it's exactly as you said, it wasn't that you're not shutting down the business. It's not that on one day a week, it's not every single Friday the entire place closes down. It's that
some
people
businesses do. So and that works for some businesses. Some businesses, it's a 3-day weekend, whether it be a Friday or a Monday. Some businesses take a Wednesday. I'm a big fan of the Wednesday. How's this? That whenever you're at work, you've either had yesterday off or you've got tomorrow off. Wednesday's a great day to have off. And if you think about it from a mental health or physical health perspective, if you've got people in your organisation who are struggling, and you might not know who they really are, if they can work 2 days at a time and then have 1 day off and then work another 2 days, they'll be really productive for you because they're getting rest at different times. I get lots of businesses say to me, we're going to take Fridays off because we've had a bit of a look at it and Fridays is our least productive day. And I'm like, no shit, Sherlock. You're asking the wrong question. Why is Friday the least productive? Because it's followed by Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or it's preceded by.
Yeah.
So what we're looking at is disrupting and pivoting the way we work to find out how we work best, and bringing that to work and taking everything else home.
Yeah. It's also a nice way of getting employees, exactly as you say, it's the mental health of your employees as well. And it's, for companies that are always wanting to be seen in the workplace, for an employer to turn around and say, actually, we're going to look at how we can work with you to find solutions to make you have a life outside of work as well. It's actually changing the mindset of employees as well as employers, because it isn't always the employers that want their employees to work and the employees don't have a say in it. A lot of the time it's because the employees have been pushing themselves to always be seen, that they need to change that mindset as well.
And it's really important for the leaders in your organization to jump into this and, as they say, leave loudly, and have leaders that have young families. I mean, we've got one chap who comes in 5 days, but he comes in at 10 o'clock in the morning having walked his daughter to school.
Oh,
And
yeah.
how many fathers, I mean, I get all of the mothers' stories, because there are a million times we women are traditionally the ones that make that sacrifice of getting the kids to school. But how many dads just would love that pleasure? And the great thing about that is it's so important to him that when he comes to work, he makes sure he gets his job done, because last thing he wants is for the company to stop doing this and he'll have to come back to work and be at work at 8:30 in the morning and not be able to walk his daughter to school. We had one of the most fantastic stories that came out of our trial with Perpetual Guardian is one of our team leaders, or department heads actually, he's on the leadership team. He went to his child's school and collected the child from school on his first day off that he had. And this young boy comes out of the class, sees his father there, runs up to him, wraps his arms around his father's legs, and says, "Daddy, what are you doing here?"
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's like that moment is now always part of his life. And it's like, I can be there. And so if we want gender balance, we've done so much to try and get women more engaged in work and getting work to suit the tempo that women need because of the decisions we make. I mean, obviously, physically, we have to carry the children anyway, but then there are all sorts of little decisions we make around care, whether it be children or parents or whatever. We do make different decisions from our male counterparts. And so we've done so much to make the workplace suit us. We haven't given our men, so we've done all this work pulling women up, but we haven't given our men the chance to get out. And so much of what we need and so much of the beauty of a reduced hour workplace and valuing it across the entire company is that we give men that opportunity too, because they want to be able to do that, but society hasn't constructed. It's getting there. We're getting there. But the permissions necessary still need to be reinforced.
It's true. The amount of dads that I have spoken to during lockdown that have said one of the best things about lockdown is being there for their children is insane. It goes to show that it's not about dads not wanting to be there. They've always wanted to be there. They just haven't been given the opportunity to. Um, and so
They
it
haven't
is really
taken the
interesting.
opportunity. I think it's possibly more a little bit of the not taking the opportunity, to be quite honest. I'm sorry, any of you chaps that are listening. I feel I'm being a bit hard, but the reality is women make different decisions on the whole. And we do that willingly or seemingly willingly. But men need to step up. I mean, there was I meant to write his name down actually, but there was some chap on Twitter in the US the other day, works for a private capital firm. And he thinks that paid parental leave is a ridiculous idea, and certainly any man that takes time off at the birth of his child is just a wuss and is a big
Wow.
fan of traditional roles. And I'm like, are you living in the 20th century? I mean, we've moved on from that. I think we moved on about 1980. But of course,
Yeah.
in the UK and New Zealand and places like that, we value, we don't call it maternity leave anymore, it's parental leave, right? And we are focused in on that. And it's not because we think that it's right, but it should be what men want. I mean, who wouldn't want to spend those formative months having a chance to get to know your child? It's the blessing that most of us women get, and it's just we should need to share that. And we know that our children are better off for having better relationships with their fathers. So anyway, so I'm going to unfriend him. I tell you, if he's a connection of mine, I'm unfriend, disconnect.
Oh, big time. I was going to say, I have a 4-month-old as we speak. So the 4-month sleep regression is real. Um, so
Yes.
I'm struggling big time. But actually, one of the biggest things, you know, for me is having my husband here, because he's Kiwi and I'm from the UK. It's interesting how you're exactly right. We have the same family values for sure. And it's tricky. It is really, really tricky to do it on your own. Actually, I've been grateful for lockdowns because it meant that I didn't have to do it all on my own.
Well,
So yeah, it's really
and he gets
tricky.
a chance to truly be there without any guilt, and then he sets an example for fellows that will follow. And so it's a big passion for mine. I mean, there's so many reasons why reducing work hours is important, because then the next thing is COP26 and the environment. So, but don't get
Hugely.
me started.
So, what do you think is, I guess, sort of um, looking into the future here with the pandemic and sort of moving forward from there? I mean, what do you think is going to happen for the future of work? Because it does make sense to have more 4-day weeks for people to be able to manage their own productivity, because we are all adults. Um, do you see employers now actually wanting to look into new ways of changing the face of work, because effectively the pandemic's given us that opportunity to do so?
It has. I mean, there was a piece of research out the other day from Otago University that said that working from home didn't suit 36% of the population, which means that it works for 64% of the population. But different question. So now we know that because we all went and worked from home. Previously, we didn't have as much work from home as we should have had. And we've proven the point that we can. But prior to the being able to work from home, did working in the office not suit 64% of the workforce? Because it wasn't something that we could study, and it wasn't something that we necessarily had any comparison for. So I think moving forward, this is something that employers are truly starting to understand. They recognize that well-being at work is, winning at work is connected to well-being at work. I think the difference we've got is the whole great resignation thing going on, but also we've got a recognition that for the last 10, 15 years, we've been talking about health and safety in the workplace, but realistically, all we've been talking about is safety. So now we understand that burnout is real. You don't have to be in the C-suite and in an executive position to burn out. We recognize that everyone has times when they struggle, and that the mental health and physical health journey of our population, not just our employees, but our entire population, is important if our country is going to succeed. And so, yeah, judging by the number of companies that connect in with us, it's alive and well. And if you want to not have your employees flood to your opposition because they've
Mm.
introduced a 4-day week, then this is something that you truly have to be to be looking at. We're running concerted pilot programs in Ireland and the US, Q1 and 2 next year, and then after that we will be bringing those programs down to Australasia and up into Europe as well. And through that, we create a community of companies that are doing it together and learning from each other and supporting each other and creating that groundswell. And by doing that, we show government that it works, and we show government the benefits of it, and we create that we're creating it from the bottom up. We don't need government to necessarily get involved just yet. We want to show them how it works, and then they can then create legislation that supports the variances of it. Because if they jump in too soon, they're just going to, they're going to get it wrong because there's not enough information. So I'm not criticizing their ability to get it right. I'm just saying they need more information to be able to do that. And so we're going to work with them on that. Theoretically, it'll be the same government at the time. We have not got an election between now and then, so we're going to work with them on that, and awesome. bring reduced hour working to New Zealand.
That would be a complete game changer for sure.
It would. Any company that wants to talk to me about it, just connect on in.
Awesome. I will definitely, if they want to get hold of you, what's the best
way to get hold of me? Yeah, so jump onto our website, which is 4dayweek.com. So there's all sorts of things. So there's the white paper from the Perpetual Guardian experience that you can download. So have a good look at that. There's a link to how you can get Andrew's book. I really recommend you get Andrew's book. There's so much in there, and particularly for the New Zealand market, where the experience is entirely New Zealand. But if you're an overseas listener, and there's still that you won't regret having bought the book. So there's those tools that you can do, but you can, but through the website there is how you connect in with us, whether you're wanting to join a pilot program or whether you're wanting more information or whether you want to speak to me directly.
Awesome. Thank you, Charlotte. You've already answered this question, but I ask everybody on the podcast, what does winning in work mean to you?
Oh, look, it's such a big question, isn't it? But realistically, it means having the appropriate amount of time at work and going home so you can win at home too.
Oh, I like that, winning at home.
Yeah. Especially if you've got a 4-month-old.
I'm never winning at home with a 4-month-old.
Mine are all grown up. My 23-year-old's sitting here behind me, so.
Oh, I have to say, I didn't realise until becoming a mum how hard it is, and I have a lot of time for parents everywhere. That you just don't realise it until you're in it.
You're just going to work when the baby sleeps.
Yeah, I kick myself for thinking that one. And it can't be that hard. Yeah,
no,
it can.
Exactly.
But
it is the most amazing thing that you can do in life. It's the most frustrating thing that you can do in life. But as someone once said to me when my young boys were little, my young men, nothing smells like my child.
It's true. Very, very true.
So I wish all of your listeners the absolute best at winning at work. And if they want to reduce work, then I am their gal.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. I know we have a lot of US listeners as well as UK, as well as Kiwi listeners as well. So definitely to the US listeners, please do head over to the website to look at the pilots for the US, because that is.
Yep. So we've got really a final US pilot session coming up, but the information on how to join the pilot is all there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Charlotte.
No problem.
You've told us how we can find out more and how we can find you, and all of that will be added into the show notes as well. So
absolutely,
thank you very much.
Feel free to connect to Andrew and I on LinkedIn if that's your gig.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you. Bye.